Chapter 10. Air Travel. Section 1. Mary had to wait for another 6 weeks before the washing machine was put right. Meanwhile, she had to do the washing at the laundrette as before. This was very inconvenient, especially as she had to take Simon with her in the pram. She and Arthur decided that when they needed to buy another expensive piece of equipment, they'd consult the consumer magazine Which. But it was selling expensive pieces of equipment which was now occupying most of Arthur's attention at this time. He had been entrusted with the task of travelling up and down the country, trying to persuade various firms to buy the computers produced by Robinson Electronics. On his first 3 trips, he didn't appear to meet with much success. However, on his 4th trip, which was to Newcastle in the northeast of England, he managed to pull off quite a successful deal with a heavy industrial firm. This was quite a feather in Arthur's cap, and the sales director, David Masterson, was so impressed that he decided to give Arthur a chance to see what he could do in an overseas market. The commercial attaché at the British Embassy in one of the oil-producing states in the Persian Gulf had received an inquiry which suggested that one of the local banks was interested in replacing their computer, which was becoming obsolescent. The message had been passed on to Robinson Electronics, who were anxious to send somebody out there as soon as possible. The firm was just beginning to show signs of expansion, and at that particular moment the entire sales force was otherwise occupied. Apart from Arthur, that is. He was given a thorough briefing from the sales director prior to his departure. He wondered whether there'd be any language problem at first, but was assured that English was spoken by all the people he'd be likely to meet. So one Thursday morning he got up early, said goodbye to Mary and Simon, and made his way to Heathrow Airport. Having parked his car in the long-term multi-storey car park, he checked in at the British Airways desk and then went to wait in the departure lounge.
British Airways announced the departure of flight BA 179 to Athens and Bahrain. Would all passengers for this flight please proceed to gate number 3?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of Captain Howell and his crew, I'd like to welcome you aboard. We shall be taking off in a few moments. Please keep your seatbelts fastened until we're airborne and the sign goes off. We also recommend passengers to use their seatbelts throughout the flight unless they actually leave their seats. Instructions for emergencies can be found in the seat pockets in front of you. We'll be serving lunch in about an hour's time, and drinks are available throughout the flight. We hope you enjoy your flight. Thank you.
Are you going to Athens or Bahrain?
Oh, I'm going to Bahrain. You going there as well?
No, I'm just going to Athens, as a matter of fact. I'm working there at the moment.
Oh, yes. What do you do?
Well, I teach English at the language school in Athens.
Oh, do you really? That sounds interesting.
Well, it's better than working.
Oh.
Seriously, though, I find it fascinating. In fact, we have to work quite hard, especially in the evening when most of the classes happen. And Greece is a marvellous place to work. Splendid people. What do you do, by the way?
I'm in electronics, actually. I'm off to Bahrain to try and sell a computer.
Oh, really? I've always admired chaps like you. I'd be absolutely no good at anything like that.
Well, I'm very new to it myself. This is my first trip abroad for the firm.
This is the captain speaking. We are now flying at 30,000 feet over southern Italy. If you look down to your right, you can see the island of Sicily and beyond it the Mediterranean. We shall be landing at Athens airport in about 50 minutes. Weather reports from Athens are good, but there may be some air turbulence as we pass over the western coast of Greece.
I don't like flying, do you?
Well, I haven't flown all that much myself. This is the longest flight I've ever made.
Just have a look at that wing.
Huh?
It seems to be bending a hell of a lot. It was just about here they had that awful crash last year. No survivors, of course. They couldn't even find the wreckage for 4 days.
Oh, yes. I remember reading about that.
Yes. And there's always the danger of hijackers, isn't there? Look at that young chap in the dark glasses over there. He seems to be signaling to someone. I must say I don't like the look of him.
It's all right. He's just trying to attract the hostess's attention. I expect he wants to order a drink or something.
Yes, I suppose so. Still, I wouldn't like to meet him in a dark alley. Oh!
What on earth was that? I'm feeling a bit sick. Would you excuse me for a moment? The lavatory's at the back, isn't it?
That's right. There's one on either side at the rear of the cabin.
Oh, my God. I say, I think I ought to tell you, somebody's left a briefcase just inside the lavatory door.
Section 2. The passage is taken from the novel No Highway by Neville Shute, written in the late 1940s. He never felt the machine leave the ground. At the runway's end, she turned across the wind and cleared engines one by one. Then, before Mr. Honey realized what was happening, the runway lights were sliding past his window in acceleration, and presently they fell away below. It was the first time he'd travelled in an aeroplane with modern soundproofing, and it took him by surprise, because he'd expected to be warned for the takeoff by a great burst of noise. But there was no such roar, and before he realized quite what was happening, the airport was below and behind. Then there was nothing to be seen out of the window but a blackness that reflected his own face and everything in the brightly lit cabin. He leaned back in his seat and relaxed, savouring the comfort. Presently, the stewardess, who was attending to the passengers at his end of the cabin, came up the aisle, stopping by each passenger and saying a few words, helping to tuck away the safety belt, taking orders for meals upon a little pad. She came to Mr. Honey presently and said, "I'm sure you'd like a little supper before settling down, sir. What can I get you?" She told him what he could have. He ordered a cup of coffee and a plate of sandwiches. She noted it. And then he said, "I say, is that Monica Teasdale sitting over there?" The girl nodded. "That's right. She came over about a fortnight ago. Quite a number of film actors and actresses travel with us, American as well as British. She always travels this way." He said in wonder, "She looks just like she does in her pictures, doesn't she?" "I know, but she looks old when you see her close up in the early morning." The stewardess laughed, and Mr. Honey laughed with her. "But she's ever so nice." "One more thing," Mr. Honey asked. "What sort of aeroplane is this?" The girl said, "This is one of the latest, sir. What they call the reindeer type. That isn't what we call them on the line, of course. This one is called Red Gauntlet. But it's the reindeer type made by the Rutland Aircraft Company. It's the very latest thing. We've only had them in service for a few weeks." She broke off, smiling. "I was forgetting, sir. You must know all about them." Oral Practice 1. Practice saying these sentences from the dialogue.
Gate number 3.
proceed to gate number 3. Please proceed to gate number 3. For this flight, please proceed to gate number 3. Would all passengers for this flight please proceed to gate number 3?
A fact. As a matter of fact. To Athens, as a matter of fact. I'm just going to Athens, as a matter of fact. No, I'm just going to Athens, as a matter of fact. Like that. Anything like that. No good at anything like that. Absolutely no good at anything like that. I'd be absolutely no good at anything like that. Last year. That awful crash last year. They had that awful crash last year. Just about here, they had that awful crash last year. It was just about here they had that awful crash last year. Alley? In a dark alley? Meet him in a dark alley? I wouldn't like to meet him in a dark alley. Still, I wouldn't like to meet him in a dark alley.
Oral practice 2. Listen to the dialogue and then take the part of B.
So you're off to Rome, are you? How are you going?
By plane. I'm not all that keen on flying, though.
Why not? It's much quicker than any other way.
Well, it always makes me nervous. I don't think it's very natural to be all that way up in the air.
I know what you mean, but there are very few accidents these days.
Well, perhaps not. But when there are, there isn't much you can do about it, is there?
Well, I'm sure you'll be all right.
I suppose so, but I still hate it. Especially when you get into a seat between two other people.
Yes, there isn't much room, is there?
And then when they come round with that plastic tray and what I always think of as plastic food, there's never any elbow room.
Yes, but it's all over pretty quickly, and then you can forget all about it.
Not really. I keep thinking about the flight back.
Now wind the tape back to the beginning of this dialogue, and this time speak at the same time as B. Now here's the dialogue again, and this time you take the part of B.
So you're off to Rome, are you? How are you going? Why not? It's much quicker than any other way. I know what you mean, but there are very few accidents these days. Well, I'm sure you'll be all right.
Yes, there isn't much room, is there? Yes, but it's all over pretty quickly, and then you can forget all about it.
Oral Practice 3. Listen to Don Warham talking about air travel, then answer the questions in your book.
Do you think flying is safe? Or to put it another way, do you feel safe when you're flying?
That's a very difficult question. Generally speaking, yes, but I have felt, at least on one occasion, very awful while I was flying.
Tell me about this occasion.
For no reason at all. I boarded a jet, a Boeing 707 at Boston, to fly to London one evening, and this was before the days of in-flight entertainment.
What do you mean by in-flight entertainment?
Films and stereo music and all this
yes,
rubbish.
they have that these days on
these
these transatlantic flights.
Quite, yes.
Yeah.
However, the day that I'm talking about, they didn't, and we left Boston at about 9 o'clock one evening and had dinner. The lights were then put out, seats were tilted back, blankets were issued, and everybody went to sleep, seemingly except me. And I was sitting, thinking about nothing in particular, gazing out of the window, and this thought suddenly came to me, and I looked down and I thought, you know, here you are in a canister, moving across the Atlantic at about 10 miles a minute, and suspended something like 7 miles above it. You must be completely mad. At which point I ordered a very large brandy before I was able to continue with this. Yes, I was very worried that night. I don't know why. There was no cause for this.
And did anything happen to make your worries justified?
Not on that occasion, no. I mean, the things had happened.
Was there another occasion when your worries might have been justified, or when?
Oh, yes. I remember going back into the 50s when I used to commute across the Atlantic fairly regularly, say 4 or 5 times a year, in propeller-driven aircraft in those days, and I certainly was in one at one stage which went into an air pocket. We fell what seemed to be a couple of thousand feet. I'm sure it couldn't have been, but it seemed that, and we were eating dinner at the time, and everybody had a dry cleaning bill charged to the airline. The plane simply dropped with an almighty crash. All the trays went up into the air, and coffee, drinks... And
when you say it dropped, it didn't drop to the ground?
No, it managed to stay in the air, but it was a pretty rapid descent, shall we put it that way. It was rather like getting in a lift and falling the height of the Hilton at a rapid rate of knots, and you wound up with a big crash, but still in the air. So it was a very uncomfortable experience at that time.
And you managed to survive that?
Oh yes, we all survived it. We all came out very mucky at the other end. We all came out very green, I think, at the other end. We finally landed in Newfoundland, and the airline were very good to us. They filled us up with drink. They gave us money to have our suits and coats and all the other things that had been damaged by ice cream and everything else put to rights. And they also gave us an apology and a free return trip, I might add.
You don't think this is the typical experience?
No, it wasn't typical. It was very unexpected and very rare.
Tell me about the time after you flew. Tell me about the time after that you flew. Did you feel at all apprehensive?
No, I think if I feel any apprehension, it's usually on landing.
Why is that?
I don't really know. I think if you fly 3,000 miles, you're aware that your life is in the hands of one man up front, and that one day he's got to make a mistake. Well, he takes off, and if he gets over that, the flight's usually uneventful, and the only mistake he can really make is to hit the runway too hard or too soft or whatever and bounce off that. And I sometimes do feel rather apprehensive when planes are going into land, particularly in bad weather.
Oral Practice 4. Word formation. Listen to the examples first.
Iran is one of the countries that produces oil.
Oh, so it's an oil-producing country, is it?
Oh, so it's an oil-producing country, is it?
Mr. Jackson's on a mission to find some facts.
Oh, so he's on a fact-finding mission, is he?
Oh, so he's on a fact-finding mission, is he? Now you go on in the same way.
Iran is one of the countries that produces oil.
Oh, so it's an oil-producing country, is it?
Mr. Jackson's on a mission to find some facts.
Oh, so he's on a fact-finding mission, is he?
Leyland's a firm that manufactures cars.
Oh, so it's a car manufacturing firm, is it?
Australia's a country where they speak English.
Oh, so it's an English-speaking country, is it?
Tigers are animals that eat meat.
Oh, so they're meat-eating animals, are they?
We're people who love peace.
Oh, so you're peace-loving people, are you?
That's a factory where they pack eggs.
Oh, so it's an egg-packing factory, is it?
That man's an expert on programming computers.
Oh, so he's a computer programming expert, is he? That's the end of Oral Practice 4. Oral Practice 5. Expressing Possibility. Listen, please. Has Roger passed his examination?
He might have passed. I don't know yet.
He might have passed. I don't know yet.
Has Vera heard anything about the job she applied for?
She might have heard. I don't know yet.
She might have heard. I don't know yet.
Now you go on in the same way. Has Roger passed his examination?
He might have passed. I don't know yet.
Has Vera heard anything about the job she applied for?
She might have heard. I don't know yet.
Have the Johnsons moved?
They might have moved. I don't know yet.
Have you been chosen for promotion?
I might have been chosen. I don't know yet.
Has the plane arrived?
It might have arrived. I don't know yet.
Has your proposal been considered?
It might have been considered. I don't know yet.
Has the letter you sent yesterday arrived yet?
It might have arrived. I don't know yet.
Has Barbara's baby been born yet?
It might have been born. I don't know yet.
That's the end of Oral Practice 5. Oral Practice 6. Expressing hypothetical possibility. Listen to the examples first.
Did Joe pass his driving test?
No, but he might have passed if he had taken my advice.
No, but he might have passed if he'd taken my advice.
Did Fred get promotion?
No, but he might have got promotion if he'd taken my advice.
No, but he might have got promotion if he'd taken my advice.
Now you go on.
Did Joe pass his driving test?
No, but he might have passed if he'd taken my advice.
Did Fred get promotion?
No, but he might have got promotion if he'd taken my advice.
Was the cake Jill made edible?
No, but it might have been edible if she'd taken my advice.
Did Norman win his game of tennis yesterday?
No, but he might have won if he'd taken my advice.
Has Lily got married yet?
No, but she might have got married if she'd taken my advice.
Did your brother get a good job?
No, but he might have got one if he'd taken my advice.
Was George's book published?
No, but it might have been published if he'd taken my advice.
Was Harry's business trip successful?
No, but it might have been successful if he'd taken my advice.
That's the end of Oral Practice 6. Oral Practice 7. Dictation. First, cover up the passage and listen, please.
Although it is now possible to cross the Atlantic Ocean by air in just a few hours, nobody has yet managed to overcome the problem of the time it takes to get to an airport from one's home on the other side of a big city. Thus it seems that it is quite impossible to arrive at an airport just a couple of minutes before the plane takes off. And when you arrive at your destination, you sometimes have to wait anything up to 3/4 of an hour before you can collect your baggage.
Now you'll hear the passage again, and this time you must write down what you hear.
Although it is now possible to cross the Atlantic Ocean by air in just a few hours, nobody has yet managed to overcome the problem of the time it takes to get to an airport from one's home on the other side of a big city. Thus it seems that it is quite impossible to arrive at an airport just a couple of minutes before the plane takes off. And when you arrive at your destination, you sometimes have to wait anything up to 3/4 of an hour before you can collect your baggage.
Now, here's the passage again.
Although it is now possible to cross the Atlantic Ocean by air in just a few hours, nobody has yet managed to overcome the problem of the time it takes to get to an airport from one's home on the other side of a big city. Thus it seems that it is quite impossible to arrive at an airport just a couple of minutes before the plane takes off. And when you arrive at your destination, you sometimes have to wait anything up to 3/4 of an hour before you can collect your baggage.
Now check the dictation in your book. That's the end of Chapter 10.